welcome, Paul. Great to see you, man.
Great to be here, John.
Just want to thank you for bringing your incredible talent, leadership, musical, everything to Con Alma for all these years. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate your presence. And so it's great to have you here tonight to continue doing O-Jazz joint here and have some fun. I wanted to, first off, ask you about, coming up in Pittsburgh, where you're from in Pittsburgh and how you got involved in the Pittsburgh jazz scene.
Well, my family is originally from the Hill District, one of the great rich neighborhoods in our town, and music has always been a part of my life, like a lot of people in their lives and their families.
Yep.
Before I played music was all around. When I was really young, I'm old enough to have grown up during a time where we had to take music when we were in grade school. So I started playing piano and violin at an early age.
Wow.
And then in middle school, I started playing trumpet.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I played, that was my main instrument pretty much almost until the end of high school.
Really?
Yeah.
So you didn't start playing upright?
I didn't start playing upright, until the beginning of high school, but it was always like a secondary thing.
Okay, wow.
But I had a best friend who was actually a drummer, a really fantastic drummer, named Paul Wells, who lives in New York.
Paul Wells, yeah.
And he was a prodigy, and I was hanging out with him, watching him play the drums, and he listening to rock music, and I really wanted to play with him. So trumpet didn't make sense, because the kind of music he was into. So it makes sense to play guitar or bass, and the bass had 4 strings, and the guitar had 6. So I thought this will be a lot easier.
Yeah,
so I started playing bass so I could play with my best friend.
Wow.
And he started getting into jazz. And so when he started pivoting, I started pivoting with him.
No kidding.
And he started going out to jam sessions and gigs, and that's how the door kind of opened to me, was through this amazing drummer that was my buddy.
Wow. And did you start on electric bass then?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. I totally started on a 4-string electric bass. I wanted to be the next Geddy Lee from Rush.
Right. You grew up on some Rush.
Oh my goodness!
What were some
Love
of the
that
other
stuff.
rock and roll stuff before you got into jazz?
I loved Yes, prog rock, King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. But at home, my mom was listening to Anita Baker, Michael Jackson, Chaka Khan. My grandfather was a huge jazz fan, so I'd heard Coltrane and Sonny Stitt.
Wow.
My whole life. So
did you go to Kappa High
I
School?
did. Yes, I went to the Performing Arts High School. I was only there for 1 year though, my senior year.
Okay. It was Roger Humphreys there.
And Roger
then?
Humphreys was definitely one of my mentors, one of my teachers. He was there. I got to be around him and later play in his band.
Yeah, and now you teach at Kappa.
Now I teach. It's kind of full circle. I'm a teacher at Kappa.
Wow, lucky them, man. Lucky them.
Thanks. Lucky me.
You've done a lot of playing with so many people, so many great musicians, so many greats. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about playing with Stanley Turrentine, who's not only a Pittsburgh jazz legend, but just a jazz legend, and kind of how that came about and what that experience was like.
That was unbelievable. I mean, first let me say, Stanley is my favorite saxophonist.
Yeah.
And to be on the stage playing with your favorite saxophonist is something very few people get to ever do. And I was in his band. I was his bass player, so it was like a dream come true for me.
Wow.
But Stanley had close ties. He always kept his ties to Pittsburgh. He came back home a lot, even just to visit family.
Yeah.
And when he came back home, he would always come out to the jazz clubs.
Yeah.
He would pop into a jam session. So the local cats, he always stayed connected to the scene.
Yeah.
And because I was playing with Roger Humphreys so much, whenever Stanley was in town, he was around.
Yeah.
Sitting in. So I had played with him several times.
Wow.
And then out of the blue, seemingly, I was supposed to play this gig with the legendary trombonist Harold Betters, who passed away a few years ago, in New York. And Stanley was also going to be on the bill. And out of the blue, he called me and said, "Hey, I heard you're coming up to play with Harold Betters. Why don't you play my set as well?"
No kidding.
So I played a set with Stanley after the thing with Harold, And about a week later, his wife called me and said, "Hey, we have this gig coming up at Blues Alley in D.C. Can you come and do it?" And I said, "Of course." And that's how it started.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's incredible. And so you toured. How long did you tour with Stanley Turrentine?
I was with Stanley for about 18 or 19 months, right up until he died.
Wow.
I was on the very last gig he ever played.
No kidding. I
played the last tune with him. It was at the Blue Note. It was an encore. He played LaPlace Street. It was an encore. Everybody was standing up. He played so amazing. Right to the end, he was crushing.
Wow, that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that, man.
No, man, it was an honor.
And so growing up in the Hill District, were you around, the Crawford Grill? Like, was that kind of in your sphere? I know you were playing there a lot by the time you started playing and you were out and about, but as a kid, do you remember it? Was it a part of your life at all? Just curious.
It was kind of on the fringe of it.
Yeah.
My family, like I said, they were all really into music.
Yep.
And my family is from the Hill District, but we all inhabited different parts of the city. My mother eventually moved to the East Liberty, East End of town.
Yeah.
But we were all deeply connected. And when I started, here's a funny thing, when I started playing jazz and going out to these sessions, my uncles would always know about these people. Oh, you're playing with Roger Humphreys. Oh, man, are you playing a two-suite? They knew all the places we were going to play. They knew about all the cats on the scene because they were so into the music.
Yeah.
So it was, when I became a jazz musician or started training to become a jazz musician, it was a big deal with them. It was very honorable in my family, and they really had a lot of respect for the journey that I was going and who I was playing with. It was really cool.
Wow, that's so cool. And also in relation to, I know from when we've talked, you came up you were raised also with kind of a strong meditation practice. That was a part of your life more than a lot of other people. And I was just, curious if maybe if there was some kind of insight about the benefit of meditation and playing this music.
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Well, I'll tell you this, the greatest lesson I ever learned is absolutely applicable in music, and that's if you master one thing, you've mastered 100.
Wow.
So work on that one song, learn it, be perfect at it, work on that one thing. It'll help you master so many other things. Wow. So be really mindful. Be in the moment, one thing at a time.
That's great. Thank you. Now I want to switch gears, and you've been successful in something that a lot of musicians go for these days, but it's hard to break through, and that is developing and establishing an online presence, a YouTube page. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your YouTube page, PD Bass, which is at 175,000 subscribers. You started it some years ago, and it's just it's been amazing to watch that grow. But I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd love to. It's my heart and soul. I really love doing YouTube, and the reason I keep doing it is because I love doing it. It's not because of any numbers or any amount of money.
Okay.
I love making videos. I love editing videos. I love coming up with great ideas. But it was something that was in the back of my head in about 2019. I'd seen creators that I really liked, and I thought, I have my own story. I'd like to try to do this. And I kept putting it off because I was so busy. And then the pandemic happened, and everybody was at home with no gigs. And I saw it as a big sign, from the heavens, like, it's time now, do it. So I started doing it. And
what would you say is kind of the concept of the page? It's a focus on bass.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something that I really know. And with YouTube, you have a little more success the more specific you can be with your niche.
Okay.
The more focused you can be with your content, when people know what you're going to come with,
Yeah.
the more successful you're going to be. So I thought the bass was going to be my angle, but it's kind of morphed into this. It used to be an instructional kind of, here's a lesson on how to do something, and it's kind of grown into me talking about my favorite music, and my favorite bass lines, and players that I think people should know that they don't know about.
Absolutely, it's great, and it really is cross genre. Like I was watching the one you just put up on Fleetwood Mac, and then all the upright ones you've done as well, and
I try to. My rule with it is to be a moving target. I want to just keep trying to do things that I'm into, that inspire me, but not always. Doesn't always have to be a jazz upright lesson.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fresh, man. Well, in relation to the show tonight, kind of one final question is just, I know you're going to be playing, the first set's going to be focus on Sonny Rollins, and the second set's going to be a bit of a focus on Joe Henderson. And so what is your kind of relation, what kind of brought you with this trio towards the Sonny Rollins? Because, I remember you'd reached out to me when you started this group, and you were really excited about it, and just kind of what kind of magnetized you to that?
Well, I am consistently inspired by these wonderful young musicians that I get to play with. I've reached an age now. I'm a 50-year-old.
Watch out.
Yeah. So part of the mission of jazz is to keep this great lineage going. And I'm starting to understand why older musicians would hire younger musicians for the fire, to teach, to share. And I'm so inspired by these two younger musicians I'm working with, Sujin Park on drums and Joe Seaman on saxophone. When we started playing together a few years ago, there was a lot of great chordless trio music that I thought would be really ideal for us to explore. Things I've loved, like the Freedom Suite by Sonny Rollins, and a lot of the great Joe Henderson chordless trio music.
Cool.
So these young musicians just inspire me to play this music at a high level.
That's awesome, man. Well, looking forward to the show tonight, and thanks again, Paul.
Thank you for having me, John.
We are jazz.